What is going on, fam? We are here with Paul for his 2024 election special. I guess the results are out. Dandy Don, Teflon Don has pulled it out and clean sweep. It was a bloody landslide. He got the college vote, the electoral college, and the popular vote. I can't remember the last time. I think it was maybe Bush Jr. The first time after 9/11. I think he won the popular vote after that. And yeah, I guess Tim Walz is headed back to Minnesota, so I'm not sure if this is the result Paul really wants. Is his old arch nemesis is being sent packing? All right, I'm guessing Paul didn't vote, probably couldn't vote. I'm wondering, with all the excuses he'll make, he'll probably be very, very passionate about the cause, but he would have done nothing to actually possibly get on the registered voters list. And it was probably very simple to do, because they were letting illegals vote in some states. I think a court had to overturn it at the last minute. All right, Paul, what kind of flavor are you going to bring today?
Well, the time has arrived for that day of mourning in America that hits us every 4 years, Election Day. And since I cannot cast a vote here in the great state of Minnesota, even though I'm a natural-born citizen.
Yeah, I read that Minnesota had gone blue, like, I think it was 13 or 14 consecutive presidential elections in a row. So I don't know why. I always thought Minnesota might be like a very angry red state. But I'm guessing it's probably mostly red, but like St. Paul and Minneapolis are like blue Dem strongholds.
I thought I would do an election special that just talks a bit about elections and what my experience has been trying to vote when you're homeless, and throw in a couple of fun things from the past. And the first thing I would want to say, though, is to comment on what I just said a moment ago. That every 4 years, it is a day of mourning for the nation when we have our elections. I think we convince ourselves that this is something unique to our generation or to this election. Obviously, I only remember elections from the time I was 18 when I was able to start voting. Now, of course, they weren't as dark as they are today. You didn't have a country that's as divided as today. But the simple fact is, the idea of Michael Dukakis becoming president scared me. Of course, I didn't want George W. Bush either. And, you can't win. And then you had the year where Ross Perot came in and threw a monkey wrench into the system in 92. My point being that
I think like Ross Perot was like the first real decent independent.
going all the way back, probably the only election that went smooth in this country was the election of George Washington as president the first time. I think everyone was pretty much in agreement there. The thing is, it is not a day of mourning. Even though it's gotten so dark, even though it's gotten so bad in such a divided country, so much bile and hatred and vitriol just spat out on all sides, it is not a day of mourning. Folks,
Paul, you go back to 2020, you were stoking those flames pretty hard for Trump. You were pretty relentless on the homeless consultant.
we are so lucky of all the countries in human history that not only we're given this opportunity to rule ourselves with, maybe we need more, but we have a lot of checks and balances to make sure that the system works in the big picture. And even when you have something happen like last election, 2020, where, whether anyone's certain of what the results were or not, the fact is, we get to keep going. And it is pretty miraculous that after, 225 years, we are still ruling ourselves. And in theory, somebody can come from the gutter, unlike like an Indian caste system, where you're born as a street sweeper, cleaning up human excrement from the streets. You will do that for the rest of your life, and you'll never be allowed out of it. But in America, we are blessed with
Man, no love for the Pajeets.
a system where you can come from the lowest of the low, and you can rise and become the president of the United States, which, in our generation at least, is technically the leader of the free world as well. And to me, that's a cause for celebration. And that's why I really wish I could vote today. And I'll be honest with you, technically, I probably could vote. Well, technically.
I'm guessing there was a lot of like pathways and avenues he could have taken to get on the voter roll, but he's not attempted it. It's a very heavily blue state. I think his district is heavily blue too, and I don't think he can be bothered. But he just wants to make a point of it. Yeah, I could believe it.
The first thing I did when I left the home, I went into a hotel for a while. The first thing I did was email the state of Minnesota, and I told them I have left this residence, cancel my voter's registration there, and confirm to me, replying to this email, that you have done so, because I do not want anybody else using my voter registration to vote. That was in May of 2015. So here we are, 9 years later. And I'm still waiting for that email from the great state of Minnesota confirming that they ever.
Wonder if they did. I wonder if Paul has been voting multiple times in this election.
Canceled my voter's registration, as I requested. State of Minnesota hasn't been very good in the 18 years I've been here at, well, for one thing, doing their job, and for another thing, communications. It isn't their strong point, communicating with other people. So it is possible that I did vote in 2016 and 2018 and 2020 and 22. I just don't know who I voted for, and I don't know what I looked like and whether I was male or female or what country I might have come from when I voted, that you see, that I might have voted in all those elections. The state of Minnesota never confirmed that they canceled my voter's registration as I asked them to. But they just collect their paychecks. They don't actually do anything to earn the paycheck, you see. And this is the problem I have had all along. I can't tell you how furious I was when I was not able to vote in 2016. I just went down to the voting precinct near where I was sleeping. You're going to actually see, kind of, sort of, you're going to see that in a moment. Presentation of exactly what happened, almost verbatim. And you see why I would get so frustrated. I was furious that I was denied my right to vote. And it's not because my vote was necessarily going to change anything. The likelihood of that was slim to none. But I have every right to cast that vote. And a lot of people suffered and fought and sacrificed and gave up their lives to give me that right to vote. And, on my father's side, that goes way, way, way back. So I hope somehow, some way, people out there will try to look at today as a day of celebration. We are not under Caesar. We are not under a king with a dynasty, where if his eldest son turns out to be some bat guano crazy lunatic, that's your new king. Or if you get a Nero, another crazy loon, that's your new emperor.
What was that theory? I think they said like something along the lines of like there was so much lead in the pipes and the aqueducts and the irrigation systems that whenever like they had a drink of water or something, there was so much lead in it that the theory was that it literally drove, was it Nero or Caligula, completely insane, and they became like insane tyrants.
America kind of set a standard for the world of people ruling themselves, and I think that's a great, wonderful thing. It's one of those great accomplishments of human history, like going to the moon. And it could have been curing cancer, but my employer, American Musical Supply, has ended the life of, to my knowledge, the only remaining person who was fighting to get a coherent project management attached to the goal of curing cancer within a particular time frame. So,
say what? Are you kidding me? Like, so he was like a project manager to get the funding or get people motivated to solve cancer by a certain date and time. And because American Musical Supply fired him, it threw a whole spanner in the works.
I'm sorry, I tried to talk to American Musical Supply about that. So when it comes to the election,
yeah. Thanks, American Musical Supply. Who knew? We were on the cusp of having cancer eradicated, and then they fired Paul. And because they fired Paul, it demotivated him, or like he couldn't fund what he needed to get this thing going. Thanks.
and I guess another reason to celebrate is because we're finally going to have an end to all of these advertisements. For me here in Minnesota, that means I'm no longer going to have to watch endless advertisements that I can't escape from.
Why advertise? This state has swung blue for the last, 13 elections?
Of Angie Craig, U.S. Representative Angie Craig, just trashing her opponent without, to my knowledge, ever actually giving any reason why we should vote for her. I don't even know what she stands for on anything, because all of her ads just do nothing but trash her opponent without verifying that what she's even saying about him is true. So I'm glad those ads are going to... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This isn't Angie Craig. This is Amy Klobuchar. This is Minnesota, U.S. Senator from Minnesota.
I'm guessing the Senate and House races are more competitive, a lot more tighter.
Amy Klobuchar. This is the one who remembers who came into our medical, when I worked in medical, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think, what was the story? She just came in for a photo op, and I guess they weren't really allowed to ask any probing questions.
She would come in there and basically have the public pay for her campaign stop because she played games and finagled it to make it look like it was a business trip instead. And then she ran for president. And yeah, hold on, what's this? This is back from the past when Trump was being impeached. Look at that. Now, I have a question for you though. Since she was running for president, since she's a U.S. senator, and therefore
Impeach.
where she affects the lives of everyone on the face of planet Earth, 8 billion people. It says here that she's at the bottom. It says that she's likely to vote against Trump if there's an impeachment trial in the Senate. And I guess my question to you is, if you were put on a jury, or if you got a summons for jury duty, and at the earliest opportunity when you're told what the trial is actually going to be, you just decide, hey, I'm going to vote this way or that way. The trial hasn't actually taken place yet, but I know I'm going to vote to acquit, or I'm going to vote to convict. Because that's exactly what Klobuchar is saying here is, well, if the trial actually comes to the Senate so that a trial starts and I begin the process of initially hearing evidence as a juror, I'm telling you right now, before any of that even starts, I'm probably going to vote against Trump. Does that sound like a fair and unbiased juror? Is that someone you would want on your jury if you were falsely accused of a crime? And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about being on a jury. Anybody who's sitting at the defense table accused of something they didn't do. Would you want a juror like that? And if you don't want a juror
I wonder what he's hinting at. I wonder what it could be.
like Amy Klobuchar, then why do so many people want a U.S. senator like Amy Klobuchar? Just something to think about. You know what? That actually sounds a lot like American Musical Supply.
Oh, Paul, we already got it. You didn't really need to spell it out for us there.
Because when this backstabber filed this malicious harassment claim against me, since I knew what was going on, since me and her were the only two people who were actually involved in anything to know what was going on, no one else was there. when I told them she's setting me up, what did the HR person immediately say? Like instinctively, like pressing a button and have a
Said, I don't want to hear this right now.
light turn on. She's setting me up. She's not setting you up, is what our HR person said. That kind of sounds like Amy Klobuchar saying, well, we haven't had a trial yet. I haven't actually gotten any evidence or learned anything or know anything, but I already know how I'm going to vote on this one. Is it any wonder I don't have a job? Is it any wonder that my life was ended back in March by American Musical Supply when that's what I've got to rely on for justice? And I hope that person one day will be sitting at the defense table trying to convince a jury, maybe with someone like Amy Klobuchar on it, that what she did in destroying another human being's life was the right thing to do. It's too bad I won't be around to see that trial. That would be interesting, to say the least. All right, so I'm going to mix up my discussion of elections here with...
Well, Trump could probably get that expunged off the record, right? He's just like, well, take that off. Take that off the record.
Let's just ran out of gas. I'm going to mix it up with some skits I did in the past. Remember, I've done a lot of... I never wanted to do this channel. I never wanted this channel to exist. I just wanted to keep working, doing my job, making money, get out of homelessness, and get back to a normal life so that maybe I would still be young enough to have a family and a legacy. But American Musical Supply obliterated that. They killed it. They killed my family line. Before this, though, I was doing...
It's like they broke up a great dynasty of, like, this Paul's family is this great dynasty, and he's the last virile male left to produce an heir or an heiress. And American Musical Supply has broken the chain, broken the link, and the family will just die out, the name will die out, and when people refer to them, they'll be like, oh yeah, they were once great people.
kinds of things. I have years of all these different YouTube channels and all these skits and songs and things I've done. So I'm going to throw some of these in here. Here's the first one. So what this is many, many years ago, I took Woody Guthrie's classic folk album, Dust Bowl Ballads, which was about a great document of American history as well as being fantastic music. It was about the great Dust Bowl that happened during the Depression that buried the U.S. Midwest in dust and changed the whole face of the country. And of course, Woody is singing, he's playing acoustic guitar, and he's playing harmonica. I went through because one thing I noticed was his songwriting structure was so similar to rock and roll, but he didn't have electrified instruments. So I thought, I'm going to go in there and throw in some electric instruments and see. And yeah, they sound like straight up rock songs. So the first song, I'm going to play this song for you here. This is called I Ain't Got No Home, because so many people were made homeless. But
I ain't got no home to go, no home to go no more.
I ain't got no home, I'm just roaming around. Just a wandering worker, I go from town to town.
So he's just like 2x the vocals and then just added like a backing, like basic guitar riff in the back. Yeah, well, it's not too bad.
Police make it hard wherever I may go, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore.
Yeah, the mix isn't quite right. If he did a little bit better on the levels, maybe it'd have something.
My brothers and my sisters,
yeah, I was legally allowed to vote, and well, the last time I did vote was 2014. I didn't expect any problems in 2016. Yeah, I was homeless.
What was that race? Was it Obama and Romney?
But I'm an American citizen. I have a legal ID. I have my social security card. I had, well, tried to cancel my voter's registration at my previous place. I didn't think it would be any big issue for me to go in and register to vote in a different place and do so. Now, my understanding at the time was that you could register to vote at the polling place and then vote. And in fact, that was correct. But what I didn't know is that if you're homeless, it's another story. With one exception. If you lie, then you're allowed to vote.
Well, then just lie, Paul. Just lie.
Now, try to stay with me on this one. It's a little tricky. This is Minnesota logic, so you got to kind of throw away everything you've learned in school and books and reality. You got to kind of throw that out the window for a minute. Okay, try to track with me here. In Minnesota, if you're homeless and you go in to register to vote, if you lie and you don't tell them that you're homeless and you just put in some random address, then you're allowed to vote. But if you go in there and you tell them the truth and you tell them that you're homeless,
I'm guessing it's a felony if you lie.
I don't have an address to put on here because at the bottom of the form, here's an actual, this is all I had, but this is the actual form from 2016 at the bottom. You can see part of it where it says it's a felony, punishable crime, to put in a wrong address on there. If I lie and I don't tell them I'm homeless and I put in some address, I'm allowed to vote. But if I tell the truth, I can't do something like just put in homeless on the address and put in my social security number or some unique identifier, my driver's license number, something that will identify that, hey, if you look all around the world, you'll find I only voted once.
Well, I guess he couldn't pay the fine, so he'd probably end up in jail or in prison.
Precisely because I told the elections judge the truth, they denied me my constitutional right to vote. If you're waiting for an explanation of how that makes rational sense, there's not one coming.
I'm just going to look up right now, voting Minnesota while homeless. All right, I'm homeless. If you're homeless, you can register to vote using the location of where you sleep as your address. You may need to go to the polling place with someone who can confirm. If you sleep outside, write description of his location in line 4. When you register to vote, you must provide your current. Your voter record will be marked challenged because the county could not confirm a specific street address. You will still be able to vote, but the polling place on election day, you'll be asked to swear under oath that you are living at that location. In order to better ensure your registration remains active through election day, it is better to register within 2 months of the date. If you live outside in a shelter or staying at a friend's house, you may not have any documents providing you are there. If so, a registered voter from your precinct, so like someone like, who was his caseworker, Brianna. Brianna could take him to the polls and vouch for him that yes, he does sleep in this car park, and I can vouch for him, I swear under oath.
The 2016 election, and this basically tells exactly the story of what it was like when I went to try to vote.
Hello, I need to register before
Yeah, I think I did a video where he went to a women's shelter.
I can vote in the election here today. Would you please give me a registration form?
Yeah, you betcha. Here you go.
Thank you. Excuse me, ma'am. But
I'm guessing this was years ago, like maybe 4 years ago, the last cycle, or maybe the midterms, but I'm guessing maybe I can't really speak to what the process was back then, but as in terms of like the election last night, Paul could have actually voted. He could have put in the legwork, and if he was motivated like enough, there's no doubt he could have voted.
this registration form requests my permanent resident address. I'm homeless. Well,
What do you mean you're homeless?
I mean that I don't have a home. I don't have a permanent resident address. I live in my car.
I don't know what to say. I didn't know we had homeless people in Minnesota.
Yes, there are around 10,000 homeless people in Minnesota. So how do I register to vote without a
Yeah, this didn't happen.
permanent resident address?
I'm sorry, but I have absolutely no idea. I didn't know we had homeless people in Minnesota. Let me get the...
Yeah, I think Paul takes like the concept of based on a true story, and he takes a lot of creative liberties.
elections judge. He will know what to do.
Thank you.
I guess all the like staff are completely incompetent and they can't help him, and it's just like this revolving door of incompetency.
Hi, I'm the elections judge. How can I help you?
Hello, I need to know how I can register to vote when I'm homeless and do not have a permanent resident address.
I like how slim Paul is in this. He barely looks like himself. He's like he's pencil thin. I don't know why. Like whatever software he used, obviously it's just like a template, and he couldn't add any weight to it.
Well,
I honestly have no idea. I didn't know we had homeless people in Minnesota.
yes, there are around 10,000 homeless people in Minnesota.
Really?
Yes, really.
I didn't know that.
So how do I register to vote? I'm a natural-born U.S. citizen and I have my driver's license and social security card with me.
I have absolutely no idea. I didn't know we had homeless people in Minnesota. Let me go get the county official. She will know what to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paul is always like wading through all this like bureaucratic incompetency in these videos.
I'm the county official. How can I help you?
First, may I ask you a question? Are you aware that there are homeless people in Minnesota?
Oh yes, I know that. There must be dozens of them.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those homeless people, and I need to know how to register to vote without a permanent resident address. I'm a natural-born U.S. citizen and I have my driver's license and social security card with me.
Well, okay.
Yes,
Well, where did you sleep last night?
I slept in my car in the parking lot of Cub Foods just a few blocks away from here.
Okay, great. It's pretty easy then. You just have to get someone who lives in this voting district to vouch that they saw you sleeping there.
Well, there you go. She's saying it like straight to you, and this is years ago. Also, like, so he's aware of this. Are you telling me he can't get anyone that could vouch for his location? I don't understand.
There last night. You need to have them come down here and sign your voter's registration form to certify that they saw you sleeping.
Man, with all due respect, when you live in your car, you do not draw attention to yourself. You try to stay hidden from other people so that you will not get robbed, beaten, raped, murdered, or harassed by the police.
Cod Foods is a busy place. Surely someone must have seen you sleeping there last night.
Actually, in the middle of the night when you are sleeping in your home, Cub Foods has no business at all. Besides, it is logically impossible for me to know who saw me sleeping. If I was
No, Paul. How did I know he would have the lamest like bullshit excuse ready to go at a moment's notice? It's not like physically witnessing that you are asleep in this car. It's just like vouching this is your location. This is where you are currently at, not like they must document you sleeping in this car. It's not what it means.
asleep half the time.
Well,
Yes,
I have absolutely no idea what to tell you then.
Man, this makes no rational sense at all. Even if I knew about this in advance, that would require me to call someone who lives in the district at 3 in the morning, ask them to come down to Cub Foods and witness me sleeping, but not until after I actually fell asleep. And then they would need to come down here and sign a document certifying what they saw. That is sheer lunacy.
Well, that is the procedure created by our legislature for allowing the homeless to vote.
But it doesn't make any sense. It's
Like, I mean, we'll use Brianna as the example. Like, why couldn't you use her as someone who could vouch for you? She's like a registered social worker. She has credibility in that, so she could put a call in. She could come with you on the day, or like months before election day. She could have got you registered, vouch for your location, and it could have been all hunky dory, Paul. But you put no effort into it, so this is what you get.
downright stupid. Minnesota legislators don't have the foggiest idea what life in the real world is like for homeless people.
You should contact your legislators and let them know about this.
I have tried to.
So he really doesn't have any interest in actually voting. It's just true to form with Paul. He just wants to make a point. He wants to make it an example that he is going through so much. He's having so many problems with like getting registered to vote that it's so hard that it can't possibly be done.
To contact them for 2 years. They don't care whether the homeless live or die. I even emailed all 200 Minnesota legislators individually.
Yeah, so he's putting so much effort into emailing and pestering these people, like pestering this woman, and yet he won't go through the simple process of doing what needs to be done. Like, there's numerous avenues and pathways to get it done. It's just that he doesn't want to do it because he just wants to make the point. The point is that, and it's a fake point. It's a false pretense, but he's still going to try make this. He's going to try die on this hill, and it's like anyone with any sense who is homeless could have this done within an hour.
I received only 2 responses out of those 200 I contacted. One of them asked for my home address, so he could mail a response to my message about being homeless to my home. The other response only said, "No thank you." Not only that, but the reason I became homeless in the first place is because state officials were negligent, incompetent, and corrupt. I would like the opportunity to vote them out of office so they can never hurt anyone else ever again. Would you please tell me how I can...
I mean, if his conviction was so strong and he felt so deeply about these issues and getting on to vote and make it count, then there wouldn't be anything like heaven or earth that would stop him if he put his mind to it. But of course, he's not really doing it.
Register to vote.
Well, I already told you the procedure that the legislature put in place.
That is a stupid and pointless procedure. It does everything to ensure that homeless people cannot vote. In other states I lived in, this was called criminal racketeering. When someone creates conditions of misery for another person and then creates the only solution to end the misery, which is a non-solution. This is literally no different than Rocco visiting your small business with a baseball bat and a can of gasoline, offering to protect your business from vandalism and fire if you pay for his protection. These legislators made me homeless through their own corruption. Then that same corruption inspires them to create laws that prevent me from voting them out of office, precisely because I'm homeless. That is a criminal racket.
It does seem a bit unfair, I guess. But there aren't very many homeless people in Minnesota, so nobody probably ever thought this was a big problem before.
You know what is even worse? There is a constitutional amendment on the ballot to create a so-called Citizens Committee to determine legislator pay increases. This is a clever scam that I saw all the time in California, but Minnesotans are native about the tactic. I would like the opportunity to vote against that amendment. Otherwise, you are going to find a so-called Citizens Committee comprised of every comrade and cohort in St. Paul doubling the salaries of their friends in the legislature.
Maybe you should speak to a lawyer.
Man, I need a competent prosecutor, not an attorney. But when is the last time you saw a Minnesota legislator go to prison for corruption and criminal racketeering? When you are the one who creates the laws, you create laws that will prevent you from ever being prosecuted for those kinds of crimes. That's the very definition of racketeering. The only way to remove them from office is to vote them out of office. That is why I'd like you to tell me how I can register to vote.
I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. That's our policy.
Let me ask you a question. Look at all of these people who are voting in this room. Did anyone have to vouch that they saw those people sleeping inside their homes last night?
No.
Then how do you know that the address they put on their registration form was valid at all?
Well, we assume they are telling the truth.
Let me get this straight. Are you saying that the integrity of Minnesota elections is founded on the principle that you assume every voter is telling the truth without ever verifying that anyone at all is telling the truth?
Well, pretty much.
Ma'am, as the county elections official, have you ever heard of a thing called voter fraud?
Oh, well, that kind of thing doesn't happen in Minnesota.
So oblivious to reality that they don't even realize there are homeless people in Minnesota.
That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Everyone knows there are dozens of homeless people in Minnesota. I've never met anyone who doesn't know that.
I'm pretty sure that you have in fact met such people. In any event, if you never verify that people are telling the truth on their registration...
Who actually believes that? Who actually thinks like that? Like, anywhere and any place at any time, maybe outside of like the most affluent places on earth, there's going to be homeless people. There's going to be vagrants. There's going to be like drifters going through with no marked address. Yeah, it's
forms. How do you know that every single person who is voting here today is not an illegal alien, not even U.S. citizens?
Well, we don't know that for certain, but I don't think that would ever happen in Minnesota.
Look, here's the problem I have. I voluntarily told you the truth that I did not have a permanent residence. I did not land my registration form even though I cherish my right to vote. You did not even ask me, yet I told you the truth up front anyway. And now I'm being told that I, the one person who you know told the truth, is the only person who is not allowed to vote, even though I have the legal right to vote. Yet it is possible that all the people who are allowed to vote here do not even have the right to vote. Do you see the problem I have with this?
I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. That's our policy.
This place is a madhouse. You people are certifiably insane. What is wrong with the people of this state?
I don't see any reason to get angry.
Lady, that's precisely the problem here. You don't see any. How can someone like you have a job and a home, while someone who is as skilled and competent as I am remains homeless and unemployed? This is insanity. So there's nothing at all I can do then. All those ancestors of ours fought and died to ensure that I would never lose my basic rights of citizenship. Yet Minnesota will not allow me to vote.
He's just such a bloody Karen. He just wants to browbeat people. He wants to have them under his thumb, make them feel bad, and it's like just like an oily, snaky. It's all false pretenses, and they don't know what's going on with him. They don't know that he's literally making no effort, and he's making every excuse under the sun to get away from the fact that he could have this done. He could have this sorted out, but for some reason,
You can fill out. I have the power of notary on election day, so I can notarize them for you.
And if I complete these official complaint forms, who will conduct the investigation?
Minnesota state officials.
let me guess, he can't file the complaint because he's homeless.
Conduct the investigation.
I have to tell you, 9 years of dealing with this kind of ignorance and apathy and obliviousness among Minnesota officials, not just in the voting system, but all the way up to the governor's office, it takes its toll on a person.
Just be honest, Paul. You never really wanted to vote. You just wanted to browbeat people.
That's why, when I got this job at American Musical Supply, I just wanted to work hard, work my way out of homelessness while building something that would give me some stable security in case an issue happened with my job in the future. You know, all those profit centers with the home music studio. I was working a plan that would give me a stable life going forward. It might take a bit longer, but it's worth it. It's an investment. And that's why I worked my ass off for 9 years, never expecting my own employer, who I did such a fantastic job for, to just walk up and shoot me in the head in March of 2024, a few short years before I would have been finished with all of this hard work. I should have known, because these are the kind of low-class operators I've been dealing with for 9 years in Minnesota. It's called Minnesota Nice. I've spoken about it many times. I've researched it more than probably anyone else. Yeah, dealing with these people is a nightmare. My understanding is that the way that
Dealing with you is a goddamn nightmare, Paul.
the point is, you can't just walk in, show a legal ID, and vote. And this immensely computerized state can figure out for themselves whether or not you also voted in some other county or something, because you have an ID that uniquely identifies you. So if you do it twice somewhere, they're going to figure it out. That's what you'd think that'd be a piece of cake. And, you know, 1/4 of the way through the 21st century, you'd think that'd be a piece of cake, but not for them. So the last time I looked into this, which I think was 2020, it's probably 2018, because 2020 was all jacked up with the bug. And 2018, what it amounted to was, if you're homeless and you want to vote, you can. But to do so, you have to jump through these hoops, and the hoops are set up.
They're not really set up like that at all. You're just making a mountain out of a molehill so you can make the point.
Up and held, like any other circus, by social services. Kind of like what I said in that animation. It's not fundamentally different than that. What they were saying to me was, well, all you have to do is have someone certify that they saw you sleeping homeless last night in this district, and you can vote here.
And now he's going to get really like hung up like in the literal sense that they must be watching you sleeping and documenting it and probably recording it in order for you to be able to register to vote as a homeless person, which is so not the case, but he's latching onto it because it feeds into, you know, the point he wants to make. And it's always his way. He latches onto the most ridiculous things in order to, you know, advocate responsibility for himself. Such a shitbag this guy is.
Well, think about that for a moment. Let's go back to reality and books and people who are educated and think. Let's leave Minnesota for a minute and go back to the real world, where your brain functions. What does that mean if somebody says, while you're sleeping, somebody has to watch you sleeping, and even though you're sleeping, you don't know for sure that they saw you, and they're not just making all this up?
And this is why he's probably always so paranoid about people like possibly filming him covertly outside the car while he's sleeping and possibly whacking their bag or rubbing one out to him as he sleeps.
Because you're asleep, this person's going to come over and certify that they saw you sleeping, and they knew you were asleep because they had an EKG attached, you know, and they could see your, you know, alpha waves and everything. So they knew that you were asleep. They knew it for a fact. You weren't faking it. Talk about faith. Where's that going to happen most likely? Most likely that's going to happen in a shelter, isn't it? Because in a shelter you have all these people who spend all night watching homeless people sleep. They're in a really good position to go out there and sign off. Yeah, I certify I saw them sleeping homeless. What if you're not someone who wants to use shelters, though? Let's say you're somebody who actually wants to work for a living, and you don't want to go through this humiliating, degrading, useless, pointless, counterproductive social service fraud.
Because if you felt so strongly about it, Paul, you would definitely do it. There would be nothing to stop you.
Like me, for example, which is exactly why I was sleeping in my car outside Cub Foods. Because I wanted to work for a living. I'm not looking to take free money from somebody.
So why didn't you get like the cart guy or someone who collects the trolleys and says, hey, like I see you around every now and again. Would you take me to my polling station? You see that I sleep in this car. We kind of like watch each other every day. I'll buy you a beer. I'll get you like a burger or something. Just I need you to vouch that I do indeed sleep in this location each night, and um, yeah, that should be it. Like, there's so many things he could have done, but obviously the conviction was lacking for all his
Let me
pontificating.
ask you a question. Just generally speaking, if you look at the Great Divide in America, what side of the political spectrum do you think I fall on? I want to work for a living. I don't want to take government assistance. I'm not looking for anyone to pay my bills. I'm just asking for the freedom for the government to just let me do what everyone in human history was able to do before, even if they were homeless, work for a living without being molested and not being discriminated against. Of course that might happen, but in this country that shouldn't happen for anybody, and it can only happen for homeless people now. What side of the political spectrum do you think I lean versus somebody who says, yeah, I want free food. In fact, I feel I'm entitled to free food, free money, free everything, free.
Well, you're in the absolute worst state. Like, I don't think there's anyone who would represent you and advocate for what you want or what you need, Paul. You need to get the hell out of here.
Free. No, I'm not going to work. What do you mean work? No, this should be free. What side of the political spectrum do you think those people go on?
I think he forgets. Does he not realize that he is getting like charitable donations? He is working with a social worker. He has he has got the gifts. Like, people are giving him stuff, and it's tax funded. So I don't know why he's getting so ornery about this. You are part of the problem, Paul, that you're
The
describing.
ones who want a huge gargantuan government that takes care of them like a mama with a teat.
Yeah, like Brianna is probably working for the state, and the state is paid by the government, is paid by the taxpayers. So you're latched onto that titty, whether you like it or not.
See where I'm going with this, right? 20,000 homeless Minnesotans. The people who can vote easily are the ones who have mama watching them sleeping. So they can sign off and say, yeah, this person's homeless. They can vote. The other people who want to work for a living and they want to stay as clear from everyone as they can get so that they are free and unmolested and never have these handcuffs and balls and chains put on them by the government, who are going to vote a different way, those people, it's nearly impossible for them. It's almost logically impossible for them to get someone to sign off. Yeah, I saw them sleeping.
Logically impossible. Well, you've literally created that scenario because you've taken a very bad perception or reading of what it actually means. It doesn't mean we must document you sleeping. It just means that we need to advocate for where you would sleep or where you do sleep. But the physical act of sleeping, and you know this, and it's not a mystery that you know this, but you just use it as a crutch, as something, a wedge issue, so you don't have to belly up to the bar and accept responsibility that you don't want to vote.
I'm not saying it can't happen and they don't cross lines, what's going on here, but you see the general trend of those 20,000 homeless people. People who are going to vote a certain way have it much easier to be able to vote than people who are going to vote a different way, you see. Now, a cynical person might say, that almost sounds like elections rigging. It almost sounds like someone's trying to take 20,000 votes and make sure that those lean only in one political direction. I don't know which political direction. I mean, just the fact.
Well, looking at the results, it didn't matter. The state, the county seemed to go very heavily blue in urban populations where it matters. So I don't think they have to sway or influence anything, Paul. I think Minnesota will hold for the Dems for a very long time, unless President Paul B gets into office.
The fact that Minnesota has the same party for the House, the Senate, and the governor might give you a clue, but I don't know. Let's see if any of these elections today come down to 20,000 votes. The fact is, it's not something I want to fight and try to navigate. This year, I probably would have tried to fight it for reasons stated in that animation. If these people are going to set up a racket like this, the only way I can get rid of them is to vote them out of office. I want to vote, and I want my vote to count. But this year, because American Musical Supply killed me in March of this year, and I'm just going through the process of bleeding out and dying from attrition, I have a car that I can barely move. I have nothing left. I am at the very, very end. The car isn't even legal anymore. I can't afford tax. I can't afford insurance. And 5 days into November. So I'm at the very end. This is not a time I want to try to limp a car that can't even move down to St. Paul and try to figure all this stuff out. It just isn't something I'm capable of doing. Now, if I was staying in a shelter, sucking down the government teat, in other words, living a life that no dignified person should want to live, with these balls and chains and living in this government prison, in a place where you could get stabbed or have your clothes or your wallet stolen while you're sleeping, a shelter, which don't exist south of the cities, by the way, when I'm south of the cities. In fact, I just had the police the other day, when I talked to them out through this window, say, there are no shelters in Dakota County. This is insanity. What if I were in my home and someone comes up and knocks on my window and accosts me?
You're not in your home.
I'm not,
You're
right.
in a public parking lot.
Right, which is my home. And that's the law of the land, so I can't do anything about it right now. That's the way it is right now.
Your vehicle, I mean, I know you live on here, but it's not a residence or a house.
It's not a legal residence, but it is the only place I have. Logically, can you provide me with another place that is a residence I can go to?
You don't have any shelters in Dakota County.
You don't have any shelters in Dakota County. That's exactly. You don't have any showers in Dakota.
Yeah, Paul doesn't want to be anywhere northbound of Dakota County, Burnsville, because if he goes up to Minnesota not Minnesota, Minneapolis or St. Paul, Yeah, that's going to be only problems for him. He'll get fleeced, he'll get robbed. Because that's like, I suppose it's like in and around where the George Floyd riots happened and probably where he was killed too. So, yeah, there's every chance that he would actually get fleeced and shook down and, possibly murdered for real, if he if he was out there. So yeah, there's a reason why he hangs out in these kind of like affluent little, kind of like satellite suburbs of, Minneapolis.
with no family, and this is what I get. It's like, yeah, I know that. Figured that out 9 years ago. Yeah, it's one of the problems, isn't it? So basically, whether you can vote or not when you're homeless is tied to social services, more or less. That's one way you could put it. Interestingly, over the last 2 months, social services has been dangling a carrot on a stick in front of me.
It just goes to show you how like completely ungrateful this guy is. He's a total dirtbag because he has now this caseworker, this Brianna woman, like who helps him out, tries to do what she can for him. Yet on the other side, like he'll treat her goodwill with suspicion, and they're trying to dangle a carrot. They're trying to just get him to, I suppose, agree to be housed in a hotel so it will line their coffers. It'll give them like funding.
Or the better example might be Lucy's been holding the football and promising Charlie Brown that this time I'm going to hold the ball. I'm not going to pull away, Charlie Brown. I did it the other 100, 500 times, but this time I promise. And would I lie to you? Remember Charles Schultz, who wrote Peanuts from Minneapolis? That incredibly depressing comic about how bad people treat each other, Peanuts? That's about him growing up in Minneapolis, Minnesota nice. I promise, and I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't lie any more than a backstabber would lie.
Yeah, I swear Paul wouldn't be happy with anything they could provide him outside of like a penthouse or some sort of like music studio, and like he would have a master bedroom adjoining it, and yeah, like there's nothing you can do for him, and he wouldn't appreciate any of it. He's completely ungrateful. Yeah, the reality is he doesn't want to be in any dingy, crappy hotel, like almost a homeless shelter that they provide for him.
It's time, Charlie Brown. Carrot on a stick. You can have 3 months free in a hotel. That's what they've been dangling in front of me for the last 2 months. Do you know what
Well,
torture
there
it
you
is
go.
to be
There's
living
the
in a car
right.
and losing everything you worked for because of the
Yeah,
evil of the
like
very
what
people
a
you just worked with for 7
mindfuck
years?
that will be. Like
And these people come along and dangle this ridiculous
they
carrot on a stick in front of
know
me.
that
3 months in a
he's
hotel.
been,
Seems pretty good, doesn't it? You like living in that car?
homeless for
Come on, 3 months in a
9
hotel. Come on,
years,
follow
and
me.
they're just trying to figure
Follow
out
me.
what the fuck is going on with this guy. Why
Of course, to get that 3 months in a
can't
hotel,
he
what do you have to
find
do?
any
That's the part they didn't tell me. So, what was it, a week ago? I think it was a week
Why
ago. I sat
can't
down in a
he
room with the social worker,
settle
and she had the
down
papers there, and that was the
and
first clue we
like
got a problem.
get
Because
on his
the
feet?
papers, the paperwork,
And they just
she made
don't
it sound like, oh, this is going to be
understand
simple.
it,
You've been
and
homeless longer than just
it's
about anybody
like
I've ever seen. 9 years.
incomprehensible to
You
them.
work for a living.
And this is real life. This is in real life. So this woman is just like scratching her head, going, "Oh, you've got such a long history and nothing's worked." It's like you don't realize who you're talking to there. Like there is nothing you could possibly do for him outside of just straight up give him a music studio penthouse that he would accept. And that's where it's just crazy to me is this he's going in there under a false pretense and going in bad faith, and they're trying to diligently help him, and he's got all these dumb conspiracies, and it's all racketeering, and it's all being kicked back to the politicians, and nothing is done in a charitable sense anymore. It's all just nefarious, and yeah, it's like if you do feel sorry for this guy, you come to you come to this channel feeling your heartstrings tugged by this dude. You need your head read. Like this guy is a complete sham. He's a huckster.
At least you want to. You're not allowed to, but you want to. And she'll acknowledge I'm not allowed to. You've lost everything. You've been absolutely mangled by your employer, and everyone who's seen what's going on there will at least concede that much, that this employer did, in fact, end my life.
Yeah, it's fake news, Paul. Sounds like fake news. Got a very fake news. He's a totally dishonest guy. Paul's a complete cretin. Just despicable guy. A bigly despicable guy. And Baron told me maybe we should deport him. Get him out of here. You're deported.
You can debate the legality of whether it's legal or not till the end of time, but every one of them will concede that what this company did was end my life. I'm a dead man. And even she is more or less given up on me, the idea of me surviving. Because she actually looks at what I said to American Musical Supply that they didn't want to hear. Remember? I'm going to listen to this! But she actually listened to it and looked at the logic and said, oh, wow, you're actually right. But she tried. So she pulls out the papers. One paper, I think half or more than half of this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper was a list of all the agencies where they get to share my personal information. Then there's the intake process. What was it the first 2 years when I was homeless? Well, I sold off everything I owned then and was ready to die at the end of it because I got zero help. Where they sent me to 360 communities. I do the intake. They take all my personal information. They put it in their computer. They send that to St. Paul so they can get more funding next year for themselves, so they can keep their jobs in social services, and then they can take that salary they get and kick it back to the legislators who started the scam in the form of a campaign contribution. Hence the reason you have one party that is running the whole show in Minnesota, if you don't know how racketeering works. You see. If these people...
Yeah, you're going to be the guy who kind of grinds this whole, racketeering, cronyism scheme to a halt. You're going to be the one who put the stick in the spokes. You're going to like halt the machine. No, you're just doing it to make a really, really petulant point that is completely ridiculous anyway. On it, totally insane.
Or what I have to rely on. The people who took away everything I had 9 years ago while I waited and waited and waited, going through this intake process, then waiting a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks for them to come back and say, can't help you. Sorry, can't help you. You have to be female. And I would say, like, well, why didn't you tell me that when I filled out the piece of paper in the first place? Why'd you even have me fill out the piece of paper? You knew I weren't female. I was sitting right in front of you.
Wouldn't surprise me at all if they just fuck with him because they know they're going to have their time wasted anyway.
And it's like this lady in the animation, just... They know exactly what they're doing. Or you're not disabled. You have 2 legs instead of 1 leg. You're not 1/16 Native American blood. You're not black. You're not pregnant. You're not whatever politically correct term they've come up with that I've never even heard of. I'm just a normal, stable human being, no mental illness. The criteria for social services is not I am a human being and I need help. Okay, here you go. It's not that. It's I'm a human being, I need help. And the subset of those people who meet whatever criteria all these social services have focused on, they get minimal help. Not the help they need to get out of the whole mess, but minimal help. So this one focuses on females. This one focuses on pregnant females. This one focuses on black people.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this like goofball didn't even realize that he walked into like a women's outreach center or something like that, that or a youth center, and he just didn't comprehend where he was, and he wasn't paying attention. He didn't do any due diligence. He just showed up expecting something. Yeah, I mean, I think 3 months would be adequate if you were properly motivated and you didn't have a million and one excuses not to do the right thing. Yeah, you could actually get yourself on your feet. You could establish something and possibly find a rental, or you could find a share house or something like that. Get a job, get any job you can, get some money behind you, and get rolling. Yeah, I think 3 months would be adequate. Maybe not in everyone's case, but for Paul, he would find every and any excuse under the sun not to utilize that time properly. He'd just be like fucking around with a toy piano or a ukulele and bitching into the camera on YouTube. Surely you could use the hotel's address as a temporary address when applying to jobs. I can't believe that wouldn't be the case.
It says on people from Puerto Rico only. This one focuses on disabled veterans. This one focuses on blah, 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 blah. Just the list goes on and on. And each of these organizations that are funded through this billion-dollar scam that gets kicked back into these legislators' pockets so they can keep getting reelected and have a single party run the entire state of Minnesota. And that's how this happens. Each of these organizations, if they do decide that you meet their criteria and they'll help you, their help is incredibly minimal. All it does is give you a gas card after that, or 3 months in a hotel at best, or something like that. It isn't like one program that just says, okay, you're a human being, you need help, here's all the help you need, and then a few short months later, you're completely on your own self-sufficient, and you don't need any government assistance ever again because you're moving along. You got the help you needed to get to a normal life. Housing, job, transportation, all that stuff. They don't have that. There's nothing, it doesn't even resemble anything like that. So while they're dangling this carrot on a stick of 3 months in a hotel, as if that matters, that still doesn't solve the problems of it being illegal for me to apply for a job. But at least I could die in comfort instead of dying, well, not in this car anymore, now the car's illegal. Outdoors in the winter. I gotta take a break. Let me give you a song I wrote. This is a cover of a Spinal Tap song from back when I was working for American Musical Supply early on. Like I said before, I would often take on my days off, I would pay the money to go stay in a hotel for 1 or 2 days so that I could set up my computers and actually get some stuff done. Here's a cover song of Spinal Tap I did for that. The window's dirty, the bathroom stinks. This ain't no place to be a man. Ain't got.
Yeah, this is exactly what he'd be doing. Instead of like actually looking for it. So he gets set up in this hotel by the social service person, and He's agreed to it, and he's in this hotel for 3 months. This is the kind of dog shit and like complete idleness of Paul. Like, this is what he would do in that time. He would just strum around on this guitar, play, what is it, a Planet Coaster or Coaster Tycoon, and like just endlessly bitch about the cleanliness of the room. He'd be running his finger over every surface just so he could bitch like the fucking Karen he is.
No future, ain't got no past, and I don't think I even can. The floor is filthy, the walls are thin, the staff is frowning in my face. The flies are winning, I'm losing ground, can't seem to join the human race. Living in a hellhole, don't wanna stay in this hellhole, don't wanna die in this hellhole, please get me.
Yeah, there's nothing you could do for Paul that he would actually be grateful for. There's not a humble bone in his body. He is just endlessly he's endlessly nitpicking, he's endlessly criticizing. It's just like nothing would be good enough for this guy. What's better, like being in this hellhole or being out in like sub-zero degree weather? Paul would probably choose the latter because there's a point to be made, and it's about as petulant and petty as it comes, but it has to be made. He's even set up there in the cuck chair.
Lost it. I just lost my mind. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You've been dangling this thing in front of me for so long, saying it should be a piece of cake to get you into a hotel because you...
Come on, Paul. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. We both know you don't actually want to be in this hotel. If you can avoid it, you might want to do a day or two in it, but 3 months, no, there's no way. You don't want to be there. Yeah, this guy just wants like the presidential suite in the goddamn Hilton or the Marriott or something like that.
You need it more than any other homeless person. You've been homeless longer, and you just got f***ed over worse than anyone else in this whole system got f***ed over by your own employer. You just got murdered. There's nobody in the state of Minnesota who needs help more than you do. And now, all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, all this stupid intake process from 9 years ago sits on the desk in front of me waiting for my signature. Like I'm dumb enough to fall for Lucy holding the football for the 501st time. Like I'm really that stupid. Well, this time, Charlie Brown, I promise, this time, coming from Minnesotans, the people who gave me, well, I would presume the backstabber at the very least fits the description. The HR person fits the description pretty well. And everyone I have to rely on for help, which is why I get no help. Minnesota nice. That's what Lucy in the football was describing. That's what Charles Schultz was describing when he made the penis comic and moved away from Minnesota to Southern California. Because apparently it isn't so nice living here in Minnesota. And if you have a chance to get out, you do. Which is exactly...
Yeah, I think I worked this out before. It's like, I think it's 45 minutes to get to Wisconsin, but he won't go there. And I think it's like more or less maybe 2 hours to maybe get into one of the Dakotas. So yeah, like there's literally no excuses.
What I was trying to do. Why do you think I wanted to work in American Musical Supply for another couple of years? Because that home I was going to have with that music studio was not going to be in Minnesota. And that means I would be with normal people again, and I could have a good life going forward. And they destroyed that. Yeah, I could get out of Minnesota, I could go hop a bus and go anywhere, but I have...
Well, why the fuck not, Paul? Why not? You have the answer. It's right in front of you. Someone might give you enough to get a Greyhound and get the fuck out of it. But what's the excuse? Like, what is holding you back? Let me know.
I have nothing to work with. I had a plan where I would have everything to work with. I would be the one with the power. I would be the one with the money and the savings. Going to a place of my choosing.
But by your own admission, Paul, you're in a desperate situation. You're being murdered. The whole state is out to get you. So wouldn't it necessitate that you give up some of that power and that control to go wherever you want, and you would just get out to save your life, right? Yeah, it's more fake news.
Outside Minnesota. You gotta understand what they took away from me. To understand why they killed me in March of 2024. So
Yeah, what a total non-answer he just gave. Maybe he should be a politician. Because that's like about as like Weasley as it gets. Just a complete non-answer.
I was not very happy when, after dangling this carrot on a stick, because I can't help it, even though I know it's never going to happen. It's when I'm in this car, it isn't night and I'm freezing, I'm covered with blankets, wearing shorts, or just sweating bullets. It's pretty easy for me to feel that strong desire to, well, maybe this time Lucy will actually hold the football. and I'll get 3 months in a hotel. And if I have to die this horrible way,
Yeah, he will fold in the end. He will fold. He has no real principles. When push comes to shove and it gets a little cold, he will fold. He'll accept, and then he will really lament it. He'll rage about it, and they probably coerced him, and he wasn't in his right mind because it was so cold, and he just had to do it.
through starvation and attrition because it's illegal to get a job, at least I can do it in a comfortable bed instead of here or outdoors. But that ain't going to happen because, once again, social services turned out to be a complete farce. They should have told me from day one. You got to fill out all this paperwork. The same paperwork that inspired you to sell off everything you own 9 years ago while you waited for us to come back after all that waiting to say we can't help you one bit precisely because you are so healthy, you are so competent, you don't meet any of our criteria. Now, this would be different if there was one
Competent.
other criteria in their system. Remember, if I became president or was appointed by President Harris, President Trump, whoever it ends up being, if I were appointed to run Health and Human Services, the first thing I would do is light a match, and I would burn the thing to the ground. And from the ashes, I would build something that actually works. And what that's going to be is here's the criteria for you to get help that you need, and all of the help that you need, not part of it, so that you get part of the way there and then you fall right back into the pit. But everything you need to get out to where you no longer need government assistance quickly. For those who can do that, and granted, there are people who can't. They have certain disabilities and things that they will always require government assistance. That's fine. Those people should get that. But the rest of us who just want to get out of it and get back to normal life.
Yeah, I think he just wants like a direct deposit of like 100K and a tenancy somewhere.
Can't sit there in limbo forever while the government pushes us almost out of the hole, and while we can almost reach the top and pull ourselves out, oh, psych, which is what they do now to keep you homeless, to keep you in this corrupt system, this racket. I would create a system where the qualifications are you a human being? Yes. I don't care what your sex is. I don't care what there's no such thing as race. I don't care what the color of your
I think he's insinuated that he's going to be voting Republican, or he would have voted Republican if he could. But from what he's describing, this sounds like a very democratic policy. It's like something that's why he should be in California, because maybe they would give him a lot of money.
Your skin is, you're human. That's what matters. You're Homo sapiens, that race, the one race that exists. Are you breathing? Are you alive? Yes. And there's one other criteria I would ask. Now, that's all it would take to help people. I'm a human being and I need help. I'm alive. As far as prioritizing those people, there would be just one criteria. Do you have family? If you have family, a family is a corporation. A family pools resources to create an entity that is more powerful than the sum of its parts. That's why when you have a problem, you usually run your family. And even if your family doesn't get along well, if you value family, your kin, everyone in that family collectively is going to help you with your immediate need, so it doesn't become an absolute catastrophe. And I'm talking about normal circumstances. Obviously, there can be extremes of things, but for a normal person who's a good citizen, wants to work hard, that's all it takes to get you out of the mess. And then when you get back to a position of strength, someone else in your family has a problem, you're able to help them. Round robin throughout your lives. That's what a family is. And I haven't had that in 30 years. All I have to rely on for that function that you rely on all the time without even thinking about it, it's so instinctive for you, all I can rely on is Minnesotans, human resources, a backstabber. That's what I've got to rely on. Maybe you can better see now why I'm in this situation. So if I ran Health and Human Services, the criteria for help is now I am a human being, I'm alive, and I need help. And as far as prioritizing those, people, to the extent that they do not have family, would go to the top of the list.
Yeah, Paul's policy, if he enacted this, if he was on Trump's team and he enacted what he wants to do, it sounds like it would be financially like terrible. Like it's like a Californian model times 100.
They have nothing to help them. They have nobody who sincerely cares about them to help.
Yeah, there would be no checks and balances. There's like no guidelines, no oversight. It's just, are you a human? Are you breathing? And do you like not get on with your family? And that's it. That's it. You'll be helped as much as you need. You'll have as much, financial support that you can handle. And yeah, you you would be in a complete deficit, a financial deficit in your term, Paul.
Help them. They need help the most. And that's it. And then make sure that the help is sufficient and there at the beginning, not spread out over time. Give them what they need to get out of this mess, and then cut ties. They're on their own. And then you can take the resources.
Like, but what's the criteria? Because every person's issues are individual to them. So what if you have a massive gambling debt that needs to be consolidated or settled? Or what are you advocating here for, Paul? Like, I'm 100K in debt. Are you going to bail me out? No strings attached, so I can get on my feet and then get on with it. Yeah, this sounds like a completely irresponsible policy that no one should adopt ever. Certainly, you in particular, Paul, certainly didn't need to pay for all the gas that you did over these years. Like, this would be Paul's number one issue at the ballot box, I would think.
That wants to be successful. The social services doesn't want to be successful. You know, like they say, well, I don't want to work, and I've heard this from so many social service people, and they think they're being funny and clever when they say it, and they probably don't even believe it themselves, but it's the truth. Well, if we were able to get everyone out of homelessness, we'd be working ourselves out of a job. It's like, that would be a good thing. You see, you could go out and get another job, but no one would be homeless. I mean, it's lunacy, folks. It's lunacy. So as you vote today, you know, if that's a concern of yours, you might want to keep it in mind that there are certain people who run for public office in government, and they just want this humongous government that does everything it can to put a ball and chain on everybody, whether it's through taxation or hidden taxes, through, you know, gasoline prices, which always mysteriously manage to fall by election day. It's almost like the people in charge want us to forget that we've been paying so much for gas over the last 4 years that we didn't need to pay. So the gas prices suddenly mysteriously go down every 4 years. Of course, 4 years ago they were just down the whole time, but we've forgotten that, haven't we? I'm not here to influence your vote. I'm just telling the truth. There is one particular political party that seems to like.
Yeah, I don't think you could influence anyone's vote, Paul. I don't think you could sway or persuade anyone to your point of view and get them to switch votes, switch parties.
A big, humongous government that treats everybody like a child and wants to pull them in and put balls and chains on them and have control over their lives and make sure the taxes keep going up and up and up to keep this ridiculous racket going, which makes millionaires and billionaires out of the leaders of the country. There's another political party that has a different attitude about it. I'm not saying they're more right. I think you need something a little more in the middle, but they have a different approach to the situation.
Yeah, like America needs like a very strong third party, but I think the system is just like it's ingrained as a two-party system at the moment. You know, independents don't really seem to do all that hot. They never really ever do. I think like the last real like viable like possible independent run was maybe something like the Tea Party, but that kind of just lost steam and kind of got like subsumed into like the proto MAGA movement before MAGA was MAGA, you know?
Or like, well, we'll give you this help to get out of it, and then you're on your own, which is what I've needed all along, but I never get that help. So if you do vote based on your opinion of social services or people who are quote in need, you might consider that. You might consider that maybe the party that people thinks are the ones who care about other people are in fact the ones who hate people the most, who exploit people the most.
Yeah, they both really don't give a fuck about you, Paul. They don't give a fuck about homeless people, really and truly. I think it's just the Democrats are a little bit more sleazy about it, and I think the Republicans are a little bit more honest about it.
Who put these balls and chains and these damnable carrots and sticks in front of them the most, and it might be the other party that actually helps you people more. But they help them more by giving them a lot quickly so they can get out of it and they no longer need government. And then they can use the resources to help other people who come up with a need.
Right. Isn't Ilan Omar your House rep? Isn't she like? She would probably be about as radical and implement something like that and put it into law. Yeah, she actually might be really good for you, Paul.
Instead of trying to make everybody dependent on government for the remainder of their lives. Just a thought. With that in mind, I will leave you with the last song. Again, this is another song I redid of Woody Guthrie from his Dust Bowl ballad albums. And this will apply to everybody out there, regardless of your political spectrum. Don't treat election day as a day of mourning. I know it's rough. I know it's tough. I know the person you don't want to win, you really don't want to win, whoever that is. I know. But never forget the blessing that we have that after 2.25 centuries, we still are a country that rules ourselves. We don't have a dictator. We don't have a king where the heir to the throne could be a nut job, maybe a genocidal nut job. We don't have an emperor who has lost his marbles and wants to burn the city to the ground so we can blame a particular class of citizen and have them persecuted for the next 1,000 years. We don't have that. For all of our flaws in this country, we have a system that over time does regulate itself with checks and balances.
All right, I'm going to institute my own checks and balances right now. We are approaching an hour, so I'm going to cut Paul off there. Yeah, so the election is done. I think she's conceded. I think she actually came out and conceded yesterday. And I don't know, yeah, that was it was very poor form because the results were obvious. Like it wasn't in question when I was watching it, and she just said, "Oh, look," she probably got so hammered. Like what was the story with Hillary? She got so tanked, and she threw a bottle or a plate at a staffer or something like that, and they were like, "Oh," I think it was Podesta came out and said, "Look, you know, things are still in play. We're not going to have a concession speech tonight." But anyway, yeah, like just a total blowout. The Dems. Just a very unlikable candidate. She wasn't really particularly well liked as a VP. They should have done a primary. They should have had a proper primary when old Sleepy Joe advocated and tried to. He should have advocated earlier. He should have resigned earlier from the position, so they had enough time to get someone. I don't know who. I don't know who would have been that. Like, Bernie is way too old, and he's been fucked over time and time again by the system. The Democratic machine just ground him to paste. Yeah, I just don't really know who they could have put in that position with that amount of time that could have done any better. I don't think Joe would have fared much better either. He might have done a little bit better with men, maybe just a tiny bit, but yeah, she couldn't really distinguish herself from Joe. She didn't have any like policies. Like, she always referred to the website. She never really had anything ready to go off the cuff. And yeah, just like they're totally slaves to id poll, identity politics, and wedge issues that just people don't give a fuck about. They just see gas prices and like pain on the plate, like getting, you know, a handful of shopping, a bag full of shopping for $150, and it's painful. Like, they don't give a fuck about the fact that you know, she was first black woman or Hindu woman or whatever she was. Like, that was never really part of the conversation. Even I think black men broke more for Trump this time around, and Latino men broke more for Trump. And I think even white fucking women broke for Trump this time around. So you can tell, like, people will put aside the wedge issues when times are tough. Like, they won't give a shit. And, you know, there's a lot of, like, I think they need to take a wrecking ball to the Democratic Party, and they need to get their messaging on point. They need to put things together that actually make sense and are, you know, viable with independents and moderates and undecideds. Otherwise, you know, especially if Trump really corrects the economy, it's going to be so damning for them. It's just going to be interesting who takes over the mantle of the MAGA movement. Because they cleaned house on the neocons. They're almost all gone. That was another thing, is like, who in their right mind thought it was a good move at the 11th hour to invoke the Cheneys as someone to represent your party? Like, any Democratic or any Democrat or undecideds or independents were really going to be wowed by Dick and Liz Cheney. Like, I think Romney came out for them too, and maybe the Bushes, Bush Jr. and maybe Jeb. But what a complete strategic shit show that was. Just like, and this person, whoever is the strategist behind Kamala's campaign, is making probably millions on the back of that. It's like any fool could see how bad you know, that move would have been. And I don't think it pushed the needle at all. If anything, it probably hurt them. Alright guys, happy 4 more years of Dandy Don. It's going to be huge. And he's going to put China in check. And I don't think Trump is going to do much for you, Paul. I don't think he could ever do much for you. Because I think you've given up on your entrepreneurial spirit. It's been washed away by American musical supply, murdered, if you will. But yeah, until next time, until, you know, he uploads something that's interesting and not like Planet Tycoon or what is it, Planet Coaster or something from Steam. He's wasting money on that shit. What a ridiculous, like. And then I think he went to like a music garage to do it, like a jam session. So the man who is meant to be dead already, I think he was meant to be. He announced that he was basically going to be done, last breath drawn, end of October, and that was it. So it's another timestamp, missed. All right, guys. I'll see you later.